Between the meadows behind our hometown, there was a row of old poplar trees that rose up by the side of a stream. You could see them from a long way off, and although they were actually only along one side, the place was still known as the Poplar Avenue. Even when we were children, it was a favorite place, and those poplars had an inexplicable attraction for us, so that we used to spend whole days there listening to their gentle rustling. We used to sit beneath them on the banks of the stream and dangle our feet in the bright, fast moving eddies. The clean scent of the water and the song of the wind in the poplars captured our imagination. We really loved them, and picturing those days still makes my heart race before the image vanishes again. It is a strange thing that all the memories have these two qualities. They are always full of quietness. That is the most striking thing about them. And even when things weren't like that in reality, they still seem to have that quality. They are soundless apparitions which speak to me by looks and gestures, wordless and silent, and their silence is precisely what disturbs me, forces me to hold on to my sleeve or to my rifle so that I don't abandon myself to this seductive dissolution in which my body would like to disperse itself and flow away towards the silent powers that lie behind all things. The pictures are so silent because that is something which is quite incomprehensible to us. There is no silence at the front, and the spell of the front is so strong that we are never away from it. Even in the depots way behind the lines or in the rest areas, the buzz and the muted thundering of the shell fire is always in our ears. We are never so far away that we can't hear it anymore. But in the last few days, it has been unbearable. The quietness is the reason why all these images awaken in us not so much desire as sadness, a vast and inexplicable melancholy. The scenes existed once, but they will never return. They are gone. They are another world, a world that is in the past for us. When we were doing our basic training, those scenes called up in us a wild and rebellious longing. They were still a part of us then. We belonged to them and they to us, even if we had been taken away from them. They rose up out of the soldiers' songs that we sang when we marched off to the heath for exercises on the long, long trail, winding between the red rays of dawn and the black silhouettes of the forest. They were still a strong memory then, a memory that was inside us and came from within us. But here in the trenches, we have lost that memory. It no longer rises up from inside us. We are dead, and the memory is far off on some distant horizon, an apparition, a puzzling reflection come to haunt us, something we are afraid of and which we love without hope. It is strong, and our desire is strong, but it is unattainable, and we know it. It is just as impossible as the chance of becoming a general. And even if someone were to give us it back, that landscape of our youth, we wouldn't have much idea of how to handle it. The tender secret forces that bound it to us cannot come back to life. We should be in the landscape, wandering around. We should remember and love it and be moved by the sight of it. But it would be just the same as when we see a photograph of one of our friends who has been killed and we stop to think about it. The features are his, the face is his, and the days we spent with him take on a deceptive life in our memories. But it isn't really him. Nowadays, we would no longer have any real links with the way we used to be. It wasn't the awareness of how beautiful it was that meant so much to us or of how good the atmosphere was, but the feeling of community, the way we all felt a kinship with the objects and events of our existence. That's what set us apart and made our parents' world a little difficult for us to understand, because somehow we were always gently bound up with that world, submissive to it all, and the smallest thing led us onwards toward the path of eternity. Perhaps it was just the privilege of our youth. We were not yet able to see any restrictions, and we could not admit to ourselves that things would ever come to an end. Expectation was in our blood, and this meant that we were at one with our lives as the days went by. Now we would wander around like strangers in those landscapes of our youth. We have been consumed in the fires of reality. We perceive differences only in the way tradesmen do, and we see necessities like butchers. We are free of care no longer. We are terrifyingly indifferent. We might be present in that world, but would we be alive in it? We are like children who have been abandoned, and we are as experienced as old men. We are coarse, unhappy, and superficial. I think that we are lost. My hands get cold and my flesh shivers, even though it is a warm night. Only the mist is chilly, that ghastly mist that creeps across the dead men in front of us and sucks out their last concealed scraps of life. By tomorrow, they will be green and pallid, and their blood will be thickened and black. The very lights are still shooting upwards and throwing their merciless glare over the stony landscape, which is full of craters and shining coldness like some dead moon. The blood beneath my skin brings fear and disquiet into my thoughts. They become weak, they tremble, they need warmth and life. They cannot survive without comfort and illusion. They become confused in the face of naked despair. I hear mess tins rattling, and at once I have a fierce desire for hot food, which will do me good and calm me down. With some difficulty, I force myself to wait until I am relieved.